wouldn't have been able to take on all the endeavors that we were able to without NBT. The Abbey Group is a food service management company servicing New England and New York. We specialize in K-12 schools.
We currently serve over 50,000 meals a day, and we're really big on bringing our local food into the cafeterias.
I began working with the Abbey Group when they were struggling with their former bank to understand their business model. I was able to meet with the owners and their accountant and understand their structure better, which enabled us to meet their needs and help them grow.
During the pandemic, our whole country shut down. Businesses shut down, schools.
We had to completely pivot our business on a dime. It was still imperative that the students were fed.
I think the Abbey Group was able just to pivot and move in the direction they had to because we had NBT Bank there immediately for us.
We had the opportunity to bid and we won Farmers to Families Food Box program that was sponsored by the USDA. We were able to pack boxes and have them delivered directly into people's cars.
And so it was our good relationship we had and understanding with the business that we were able to easily and quickly respond to their needs so that they could take advantage of these contracts and win the contract.
We grew in the pandemic from feeding children in the cafeteria to feeding their whole families in their homes and to helping the whole state of Vermont during, with their food insecurities.
Everyone benefited, the employees, the families, the local companies, the local farmers. This all came together in a wonderful circle of helping each other. And you can only do that when you have a bank like NBT.
It's great when a customer calls us up and tells us about a great win that they've been working on for a long time and we help them achieve that goal.
They're personable, their employees at NBT are amazing. They care, and that's what it's all about when you want to grow your business.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 21st Century Business Forum. I'm your host, Clay Young. Our guest this morning is Mr. Tim Kight. He is the founder and CEO of Focus 3. Relentless Leadership. Is it a good thing? Our guest this morning would insist it is. Tim is a lifelong student of exceptional leadership, noting there is a long line of organizations with talented people who fail to produce results equal to their potential. And he points the finger for that failure directly at leadership. Effective leaders, Tim says, take organizations beyond talent to a place reserved for the truly exceptional. Nothing can stop the organization that harnesses the power of leadership. And, not surprisingly, nothing can help the organization that doesn't. Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning to talk with us about being a relentless leader. All right, Tim, let's begin with relentless leadership. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, Clay, good question. I've been teaching leadership for over 3.5 decades all around the world in lots of different domains. And one of the things that I've recognized is that exceptional leaders are relentless about the task of leadership.
Right.
And of course, the word relentless, you can tenacious, grit, perseverance, persistence, not stopping. That's the whole notion of relentless about the activities and disciplines and mindset that a real leader engages in. And leaders get tired, but they recover from that and they refresh themselves. They come back and they go again. And so leaders who are effective are relentless. And we believe in that great leaders, there are two fundamental priorities. Number one is build trust. And number two is achieve results. And the first, building trust, that's about engaging, and achieving results, that's about execution. And so leaders are relentless about engaging with people, and they're relentless about executing with and through people. They're just deeply, deeply committed, tenaciously committed to people and performance. So that's what we mean by relentless leadership.
You've said that your organization will perform to the level of leadership you provide. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of pressure on a lot of people. But what do you say to the entrepreneur who started a business that's making money, it's thriving, it's doing well, he saw an opportunity in the market, seized it, but they're not a natural leader.
Yeah. Well, another great one. There's no question in my mind, leadership skills are learnable and are teachable. And go back to the principle of that your organization, your team, your department, your business unit, your company your school will perform to the level of leadership you provide. That simply states that the way leaders go about building trust with people and achieving results through people, that sets the tone for everything. And that leadership activity from, again, a team leader, a department leader, or the whole enterprise leader, that sets the tone. And so if the company isn't performing well, or the culture isn't what it needs to be, or if there's something inside the organization that's less than effective, the first place a leader looks is to themselves. Mm-hmm. Is trust sufficient? Have I invested the time? Have I listened to people? Do I understand what's going on with the people on the front line of our company? Have I clarified expectations? Am I holding people accountable in an effective fashion? Am I coaching and providing the kind of support and tools and training that people need? Great leaders look first at themselves. They're not quick to blame. They're quick to take ownership and responsibility. They don't let people off the hook. We can talk later about accountability, but the first place a leader looks is to self. And what I found is a lot of people in positions of management, they're too quick to blame others. They're too quick to find fault, as opposed to look to themselves the way they lead. So I've just noticed it over and over and over again, that leadership sets the tone. For example, energy, engagement. But there's a lot about employee engagement today, right, Clay? I mean, people talk about it constantly. Yeah. Well, leaders set the tone for energy. And I tell this all the time in our training and coaching sessions to leaders. The people on your team will never be more engaged than you are. I mean, you set the tone. If you're not enthusiastic and engaged about the business and the clients and customers you serve and the things that you do, your lack of energy will bring people down. Whereas the opposite would be, the good side would be, if you're engaged and energized and excited and passionate about what you do, who you do it, and why you do it, that's going to be felt by the people that you lead. So leaders set the tone. And again, the organization, the team is never going to perform any better than the way the leaders lead.
What about a small business owner with no leadership training at all or experience, or even a middle manager who is promoted mostly because they're good at what they do, but they don't necessarily have that requisite training and leadership that you talked about?
Yeah. Well, two questions there. One would be, how do I get leadership training if I've not had it before? That's question number one. And the second question, which I don't know that you necessarily intended to ask, but it's really insightful, is people who get promoted because they were good at doing the job. And let me answer the second one first. Doing the job and leading people that do the job, not the same skill set.
Right.
And we see this all the time, particularly in larger organizations, is that, I think recently a client where I was working with all of the managers of these various fulfillment sites for this big national company. And we're in Orlando, we had, there's several hundred of them. And all of them came up through the ranks because they were really good at doing the work. But that doesn't make them good leaders. Like, who typically gets promoted to the head of sales, the best salesperson? Right. Well, selling and leading sales, different skill sets. Right. Who in the hospital gets promoted to head of the department? The best clinician. Well, best clinical skills are not the same as leadership. So it's a great point that just because you have a position or a title doesn't make you a leader. So and leadership training is available to anybody today. I mean, there's good books on it. There's great stuff on Google. There's a lot of free things out there that if someone wants to be a great leader, there's no way that they can't get access to stuff immediately that can help them be better. And then they can hire firms that specialize in leadership training. They can go to conferences and summits where leadership is taught. But we've had more content, Clay, available to teach about leadership today than any other time in history. A real leader is hungry to get better, and they'll find a way.
Yeah, I want to ask about I love what you said about the leader setting the energy. A previous guest on the show and pretty good friend of mine, Todd Graves, who's the CEO and founder of Raising Cane's, we've also talked about the Chick-fil-A franchise and the Cathy family and the environment that they set. I know Todd personally. He's always optimistic, always upbeat, attention to detail, supports his team. You go to a Raising Cane's anywhere in the country, and that energy is the same. So I'll ask, based upon what you said, if I walk into an operation and it's a very dour, somber atmosphere in there, do you just assume that the leadership has not recorrected the energy, or is the energy about who's in charge?
Well, when we do this for a living, and we have a methodology. So when we're initially talking to a client and or we're hired to come on, whether it's one company or divisions or sites, we do assessments. I'll interview people. We have a 360 that we do. So we like to get specific feedback about how effectively leaders are leading inside an entity. We also speak about the leadership network. And the leadership network refers to the impact of all the people who are leading. You got X number of managers, X number of supervisors, X number of VPs, et cetera. Again, dependent upon the size of the organization. But the impact of all of those people's attitudes and behavior affects everyone. So if you describe dour and kind of somber, and I kind of sense that maybe there's some fear in that kind of environment too, that's almost always a reflection of the senior leader of that group, almost always. And
so we've got CEOs and entrepreneurs and people in business listening here, middle management. They want to learn how to grow their business or achieve more. Translate that, what you just said, to how it impacts the bottom line when you have an environment where people aren't enthusiastic about the work they're doing.
Well, there's no question people perform at their best when there's a lot of positive, productive energy. No question about it. If I'm unhappy emotionally, if I am concerned about retribution, I'm fearful. I mean, you go back to one of the very first things great leaders do is they eliminate fear. They eliminate fear. And so maybe this would be helpful. Let me go back and let me explain a little bit about the detail of our relentless leadership model. So picture, if you will, Clay, an hourglass with a triad on the bottom and a triad on the top. Can you picture that? Mm-hmm. Like a three-part triangle on the bottom, obviously, and the triangle has three parts, and then a triangle on top. The bottom says build trust, and the top says achieve results. And the three elements for trust building are character, competence, and connection. Meaning that leaders build trust. Trust isn't given, trust is earned. People don't trust somebody because they have a title or a position. In fact, leadership isn't authority based on a title you have, it's influence based on trust you've earned. And you earn trust three ways: your character behavior, your competence behavior, and your connection with people. And every single day through your behavior, you make deposits into or withdrawals from a trust account with your people. So character behavior earns ethical trust. And so that means, and when you think of character, the attributes of character trust are things like integrity, energy, self-awareness, humility, courage. Those are the elements. You behave like that, people are going to trust your character. And then competence is, the business, but here's the key. You use what you know on behalf of your people. You use what you know for your people to get better. We like to say it this way: you use your competence to help people get things done, solve problems, and get better. And then the third and final trust in the trust triad is connection. And that's the personal side of trust. And that's what I know: you care about me, you listen, you engage with me, and you flex your style because not everybody's the same. So think of those three: character, competence, and connection. And when those three elements are present, then there's trust. If one of those is missing, trust is diminished by more than 1/3.
Wow.
So the first priority then is that kind of trust. And so we assess for that. and then we also train for that. And we can talk about results in a minute, but that's the foundation. And you can only, this is interesting, you can only push people as far as a level of trust you've built with them.
Yeah. 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 Well, if someone listening is trying to find out if they fit the description of a relentless leader, how do they discern that?
Well, we're halfway there, what I just described. But one, I would go to our website, focus3.com. We have our relentless leadership model, and they can see it there. But answering specifically right now is, number one, you are a relentless leader if, first of all, you are relentlessly earning trust through character, competence, and connection. And then the second way would be the top of that diagram, that hourglass I'm talking about, the results one. That also is a triangle. That also is a triad with 3 elements. So you get results with people through 3 things: clarity, accountability, and support. And those are the 3 pillars for earning trust. Obviously, clarity is you're elite at clarifying expectations. You clarify the cultural standards, you clarify the strategic direction of the company, you clarify roles and responsibilities, and you're constantly communicating, constantly. It's communication and clarity aren't a single thing. It's a non-stop ongoing thing. Number 2, you hold people accountable in a positive, productive fashion to the standards. And then thirdly, you support people. You provide tools, you provide training, you provide coaching. So if you're my boss, Clay, and you've built and earned trust with me through character, competence, and connection, and then you clarify what you want me to do, you hold me accountable in a very positive, productive fashion, and then you coach me, make sure I get the training and resources I need, I'm going to follow you anyplace.
Right.
You're going to get best version of me.
Yeah.
And so a relentless leader does those 6 things, the 3 for trust and the 3 for results. And here's the hardest thing about it. And this is important. Hope everyone gets this. Strength in one of those 6 pillars will not compensate for weakness in another one. All 6 matter.
Wow. I love that. Talk with us about the performance pathway and how have you seen it change those who follow it?
Yeah, that's at the heart of what we do at Focus 3. In fact, our name derives from that pathway. The performance pathway says that leaders create culture, culture drives behavior, and behavior produces results. That's the pathway to performance. That's the physics that every organization on the planet that's subject to those physics. And it simply states that if you reverse engineer it, it says that results come from how people choose to behave. That all of the numbers, all the results, all the outcomes that an organization produces comes from people's behavioral choices. And I obviously believe in the power of strategy. I know how important technology is. I know how important having a budget and finance is. And I believe deeply and support operational effectiveness and efficiency. But those 4 things, strategy, technology, finance, and operations, all require disciplined behavior in order to be executed well. And so behavior matters. I love to ask this question of leaders. What happens if you have an A+ strategy and B- behavior? What results will you get? Well, probably less than B-. Same thing with process. You got a great process, A+ process, B- behavior. That's a problem. And we've all had the experience of investing in technology, implementing technology, and we don't get adoption. People don't adopt it. They resist change. So once again, you come back to the behavioral element. And I think the number one performance issue facing businesses today is, in fact, behavior. So then culture's job is to create and sustain the behavior necessary to execute the strategy and the plan. And leaders' job is to be the catalyst for the culture. So again, leaders create the culture, the work environment that energizes and shapes the behavior that ultimately produces results. And so all of our clients who have adopted the performance pathway, they work hard at developing strong leaders, an effective culture, and disciplined behavior, fully engaged people. And when those 3 things align, leadership, culture, behavior, boom, you can do anything. And if those 3 things don't align, you're going to struggle with everything.
Well, you talked a lot about trust and in the beginning, building trust, and you emphasize the importance of authentic trust through your actions as a leader. Is that often a missed step for people, that they think if I'm competent, if I'm in charge, I got the title, I should get the trust, but they don't go about earning it?
I mean, yeah, I'm laughing instead of crying, because that is so unfortunately common. And people don't trust you because you have a title. I do a lot of work in athletics, and I coach coaches and I coach players on these topics: leadership, culture, and mental performance, etc. And a lot of coaches think that because I'm in charge and I'm the head coach, or I'm the position coach, or the coordinator, that you should trust me. No, it doesn't work that way. You earn trust. Trust is earned. It's not given. And here's another way to think about this, Clay. The organization can put you in a position of leadership or a position of authority, but only you can put yourself in a position of leadership. So a company can put its people and say, hey, you're in charge of this, and you're in charge of that, and you've got this title. Awesome. Well, whether that person leads well or not is up to that person.
You know, a friend of mine used to say a long time ago that a person who calls himself a leader who doesn't have followers is just some idiot taking a walk. And so I think what you said is so true about being in charge and being a leader. How many leaders today would you identify as relentless? Give me a ballpark percentage of what that is and a few examples.
Well, let me go back for a second. This notion of kind of where leadership comes from, and we'll use the word a couple of times, and I'll plug it back in here to the bigger picture. You earn the right to lead other people. In fact, I think ultimately leadership is not a position, it's a responsibility. And here's the mindset that I have found in elite leadership. And leadership, in my mind, is a mindset first and a skill set second. And if you don't have the mindset of a leader, I don't think you'll work hard to build the skill set of a leader. And when I look back at my almost 40 years of this profession and dealing with all kinds of leaders in every conceivable domain, here's what I see as the mindset of an elite leader. They say they say 5 things to themselves. In the morning before they go to work, they say, today I get to lead with purpose, serve people, solve problems, and bring energy. And this is the person, this is the leader talking to herself. This is the leader talking to himself. This is not stated out loud. This is an internal communication of self to self. Today I get to lead with purpose, serve people, solve problems, and bring energy. I love what I do. And then they go on to the end of the building, or onto the job site, or into the school, or onto the field, and they be that person. Now I jokingly say about noon that mantra has worn off under the weight of stuff. So what does an elite leader do? She restates it to herself. He restates it to himself. Hey, today I get to, second half of the day, I get to lead with purpose, serve people, solve problems, bring energy. And here's the thing. If we don't have something that clear, that intentional in our mind that we're saying to ourselves, we drift into leadership mediocrity. And we don't want to do that. And so leadership is this internal commitment to thinking in a way that produces the behaviors that are, in fact, leadership effectiveness. So I just wanted to say that to an organization can put people in positions of authority, but only those people can put themselves in a position of leadership. That begins with how they think, their mindset. And then they can, take a model like our Relentless Leadership model or someone else's and begin to execute the tactics and techniques and behaviors of effective leadership. Does that make sense, Clay?
Yeah, it does. And again, about leadership, I mean, you encounter so many and so many various levels around the country of the, what percentage of leaders would you say are relentless?
Wow. I don't know. I mean, that's a 25% less, maybe less than that. I mean,
wow.
And you know what else? I'll tell you something else. COVID revealed how relentless leaders are or aren't.
Yeah.
Because I believe leadership's most important when it's most difficult. I mean, it's not hard to lead when things are going well. Leadership is revealed when things are difficult and challenging and hard. And COVID was difficult and challenging and hard. And some of our clients thrived during COVID. Some of our clients had their best years ever in 2020 and 2021. And others really struggled. And in fact, we did a ton of coaching and consulting and training during COVID via Zoom because we couldn't meet in person, helping leaders regain their perspective on what does it mean to lead. So it's I don't think it's a high percentage of leaders today who are relentless by the way that we're talking about. And we need them. We need a lot more today than we have.
Well, you talked about accountability here, and many would say that that's one of the more difficult aspects of sustaining a high-performing culture is being accountable. Challenging behavior that doesn't align, and like you said, if you permit it, you almost endorse it. How does someone overcome that? Having difficult conversations and keeping their people accountable.
Yeah. Well, first of all, accountability only works if people trust you and you're clear about expectations. Mm-hmm. We get a lot of calls from companies who say, hey, we've heard you're some of the best around at teaching accountability. Will you come in and teach accountability to our managers? And I say, well, we will never teach accountability outside of the model that I just explained. So in our model, character, competence, connection for trust, and then clarity, then it leads to accountability. So again, you can't hold people accountable if you've not earned their trust and you're not clear. In fact, you want to break somebody's heart, hold them accountable for something you're not clear about. Wow. So here's how we view accountability. We've redefined it. And we define accountability as two things. Number one is paying attention to what's going on. And number two is acting on what you see, responding to what you see. So observation, number one. Number two is action in response to what you see. And so the quality of your observation should guide the effectiveness of your action. And we think of it as a grid, right? So you've got observing on the vertical and taking action on the horizontal, and you can see but not act, and that's avoiding. But you can act when you're not informed, and that's lazy leadership. That's emotion-driven leadership. Or you can see clearly and act effectively, and that's accountability. So for example, the very first thing that a great leader does in accountability is catch people doing things right and say thank you. Mm-hmm. You're observing. Mm-hmm. We teach that as pay attention to what people are doing. And when people are doing the right thing and they're working hard and they're giving great effort and they're producing results, observe it and tell them thank you. And that goes a long way for reinforcing what you want. In our mind, that's part of accountability. Secondly, observe and give feedback. Ask great questions and provide feedback, and don't micromanage, but provide feedback to people and make the feedback as real time and as actionable as possible. And it's not punitive. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's productive. It's positive. It's performance oriented. And that when you're observing and saying thank you, and when you're observing and providing feedback, the vast majority of the time, people are going to self-correct. However, there does come a time when someone is not behaving in alignment with the culture or they're underperforming. You've observed, you've given feedback, you said thank you, you've encouraged them, but now you need to have a difficult conversation with them. And like you said, you have to, because if you permit it, you promote it. And if you don't have that difficult conversation, you reinforce behavior you don't want, you frustrate people who are doing what you do want, you lose credibility, and the culture and performance suffer. So you have to have those difficult conversations. A couple of things on that. Number one, they're uncomfortable. I get it. You don't have to like them, but you got to do them. Mm-hmm. Immediately, by the way. Don't procrastinate. Number two, make it a conversation, not a confrontation. Number three, don't ever put too much weight in one conversation. And holding somebody accountable to multiple conversations. Like one of the things we teach is you have your initial conversations. Say, hey, Clay, yesterday's meeting, I want to give you some feedback because I believe how you behaved in yesterday's meeting was inappropriate, and I don't think that's behavior that we want around here. By the way, this is a purely hypothetical, right? There's no meeting yesterday, but for the sake of a story. And then I share with you what I saw. I share with you what I think needs to change. And then I stop and I listen. So Clay, talk to me about what you were thinking and feeling yesterday, because I want to make sure I understand your perspective. Then we have that initial conversation. Well, pretty good chance some emotion gets generated, right? Mm-hmm. So we got to talk again tomorrow. And I teach leaders all the time, have that initial conversation and then tell somebody, all right, great conversation. I think I understand better where you're coming from. Did you understand my perspective and the feedback I've given to you? And then overnight, let's think about it. Let's talk about it again tomorrow. And keep it going until there's clarity about what happened. And people are, because initially emotion gets in the way. Mm-hmm. And as emotion goes up, clarity goes down. So giving people some time to process that's important. So these we call them accountability conversations. Again, you don't have to like them, but you have to do them.
Wow. Talk to me about what you've said, coaching people to have ownership of their 20 square feet.
Yeah. I developed that metaphor a long time ago, 20 square feet. I think if there's enterprise, there's a business unit or teams, and then everybody's got 20 square feet. So everyone's on a team or in a department, and the departments make up the organization. 20 square feet is just a metaphor that represents every person's sphere of control inside a business. And the interesting thing is inside your 20 square feet, you have 100% control. And outside your 20 square feet, you have influence and impact. Control on the inside, impact on the outside. And you and only you decides what goes on inside your 20 square feet. You got 20 square feet of the culture. You got 20 square feet of company performance, sales, service, ops, whatever it is. But you don't control things on the outside. You do control things on the inside. And Clay, what happens is as companies grow and get bigger, people start to feel like their 20 square feet doesn't really matter that much. And they start feeling like they don't have control over their 20 square feet. Like people tell me all the time, hey, Tim, man, if you knew all the stuff coming at me from outside my 20 square feet, I can't manage mine. And I tell people, well, you misunderstood. Yes, you still own yours. Yes, you still control yours. And yes, there's stuff coming at you from the outside. All the more reason you got to own yourself on the inside. Here's my analogy. When you drive on the highway, whose car do you control?
Yours.
Do you control anybody else's?
Nope.
Does how you control yours matter?
Oh, yeah.
So that's a classic example. Highways are complex and busy and messy and all that kind of stuff, but you have ownership and control of your 20 square feet. So I like to say this, don't let the frustration on the outside diminish the fire on the inside.
Wow.
So I made a decision. I made a decision many years ago that I was going to untether my emotions from my circumstances. I made the decision I was going to bring positive emotion to negative things, not the other way around. Because I own my 20. I'm responsible for my 20. I got 20 square feet of my marriage. I got 20 square feet of my family, and I got the 4 grandkids, which I shared with you earlier. 20 square feet of the highway, 20 square feet of when I fly and travel, 20 square feet of my business. In fact, when clients hire us for a short amount of time, we got 20 square feet of the client's business. So I made this decision. I'm no longer, this was many, many years ago, I'm no longer going to allow circumstances to determine my emotional state. Quite the other way around. I'm going to bring positive mindset, productive mindset to negative things. And it's been a game changer for me.
How do you identify leadership, relentless leadership potential in someone who isn't yet a leader and develop it in someone who is a leader?
Yeah. Well, we no surprise, we look at people through the lens of the model.
Okay.
So we look through the lens of how effective are they at those 3 elements of trust? How effective are they at the 3 elements of results? And so that's a diagnostic for us. And then when we see people interacting with others, we're going to see, do they act with character? Do they act with competence? Are they using their competence for the team? How well do they listen and care about people and connect with people? What are their interpersonal habits and competencies? And then in terms of developing those skills, we train in those things. Every single one of those 6 pillars, those 6 elements, 3 for trust, 3 for results, are teachable, learnable, transferable competencies. And we call that the leadership journey. And developing leadership is not one workshop or one book. It's a nonstop journey of developing high-level skill in all 6 of those pillars. Mm-hmm. And that's, if someone just wants to take a class, they want to become a great leader because they went through an 8-hour class, that ain't going to happen.
Right.
And it's a journey they got to go on. So we look for people that are hungry to get better, hungry to have an influence, hungry to take ownership and responsibility. And more than anything, we look for people who want to serve others. We look for people who are problem solvers, not complainers. And if somebody has a servant's heart and a desire to have a positive impact, and they bring some humility to the table, and they're solution oriented, not blaming and complaining oriented, that's a leadership candidate right there.
Yeah, I love that. And then develop it in leaders who people who are already in leadership, who've been there for a while.
It doesn't change. I mean,
Yeah.
the model still applies. I mean, we apply that. Now, there's a little bit of a difference, though. When I work with an executive team or the next level down, they don't lead the people that do the work. They lead the people who lead the people who do the work.
Right.
So our clients adopt the Relentless Leadership model, and they use it at all levels. So for the CEO and the C-suite, their job is to make sure the people who report to them are leading well. And so they become, I believe senior leaders, executives are in the leadership development business. So our job is to teach them how to use the Relentless Leadership model to coach and develop the people who report to them. And then same thing, depending upon the size of the company, if there's supervisors that report to that next level, same thing. So when there's a shared view, a shared framework and model of what leadership is, makes the whole journey to elite leadership a whole lot better.
Wow. Just a couple more, because I know this conversation has been so amazing. How does a relentless leader know when it's time to make a change on their team?
I wish I had a quick answer, easy answer. Go back to what I said a moment ago. Number one, change on the team means someone that's not performing well. Is it time to let somebody go? Is that what you mean?
Not performing well, or is negatively impacting the environment and the culture?
Yeah, well said. Well, one, you coach them. I mean, you really pour into them. You know, you look at yourself and you ask those questions I asked earlier. Have I built trust with them? Have I clarified expectations? Have I hold them accountable? Have I provided them with the kind of support they need? And if the answer is all that, yes, you give them a little bit more runway to make sure that they're getting the message. If they're still stubborn, then you got to let them go. So you've heard the adage, hire slow, fire fast. That's probably true, but not too fast, because you got to make sure that they've been given what they need in order to perform well. But if they continue to have a negative impact on the environment, you have to let them go. You have to. And every single time, I mean, rarely have I've heard a lot of leaders over the years tell me, wow, I wish I let that person go sooner.
Been there.
Yeah, I think we all have.
Once you achieve relentless leadership, where do you go from there?
Well, one, you don't achieve it. I mean, I told somebody earlier today, if you think you've arrived, you got a long way to go. So it's a never. I mean, I'm the author of it and I teach it. I'm not satisfied with where I am.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. I've taught relentless leadership thousands of times, maybe tens of thousands of times. And every time I teach it, I wish I had my notebook right here. I take more notes. Oh, that's a great idea. I got to get better at that. Or I was good at that, but I've let that slip. So it's a dynamic. It's not static. You don't learn it and then master it and then you're good to go. Leadership is a dynamic thing anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is the journey. That's why I call it leadership journey. I might say this: if someone has really worked hard to master the disciplines of relentless leadership, I think maybe the question they got to ask themselves is, am I developing other leaders? Am I just building myself, or am I building leadership capacity inside my organization? I think that's an important question for anyone pursuing these disciplines we're talking about.
You know, a final question here, and I think you talk about character, competence, connection, and those are things that I think a leader could look at and say, where do I fall on this spectrum? But are there 3 practical things in that vein that a leader can start doing today to become more of a relentless leader?
Yeah, I mean, I number one would be go to our website, focus3.com, and look at the model. Take out the model, print it on a piece of paper, and then look at it and say, how consistently do I behave with character so that I earn trust? How consistently do I behave with competence so that I earn trust? How consistently do I connect with people and earn their trust? Give yourself a grade on each of those on a scale of 1 to 10. And you can't use 7. And then look at clarity, accountability, and support. How clear am I with people? How effectively do I hold people accountable in a productive way? And if you're really brave and you're really passionate about leading, once you've done that and graded yourself, take the model of some people who know you and say, what grade would you give me for each of these 6?
Yep.
Because it's one thing of what you think. It's another thing of the people who actually experience you. And then the third step that I would suggest would be, we call it having a leadership agenda. And that is, you take the Relentless Leadership model, put it on your desk early Monday morning, or even better, a Sunday night, and look at that model and say, what is my plan for building trust this week? Who do I need to connect with this week? And what's my plan to do that? How can I use my competence this week to help other people and earn trust? What kind of stuff's going to come up? Which I got to respond with character. Who do I need to clarify things with this week? Which I should have a stand-up meeting on Monday mornings anyway. But what's my communication and clarity plan for the week? Who do I need to hold accountable in a positive, productive way? Who needs feedback? Who can I go observe and give feedback to? Who to say thank you to? And then who needs support from me? What do they need from me? We call that having a leadership agenda, using the framework. Now, let me give you a little self-disclosure. Like I said earlier, I wrote all this. I'm the author of this framework. I've had weeks of my life as a business person. I didn't have a leadership agenda on Monday. And the consequence of that is, during the week, guess how much actual leadership I engaged in? None. And for me, it's really tempting because I'm super productive. I'm a hard worker. I'm very proactive. I get stuff done. But I had weeks of my business career where I did a lot of things. I was very productive, but I didn't lead. I didn't lead. I didn't intentionally build trust. I didn't intentionally clarify, hold accountable, and support. And so if in my role as the founder and CEO of my company, I can't just be a producer. I got to be a leader. And if I just produce and don't lead, my company suffers.
Yeah.
And that's a me issue. So I would say that's what someone can do. Look at the model, understand it, grade yourself, get feedback from people you trust so you can get their feedback, then make sure you're operating from an actual leadership agenda beginning early Monday morning, late Sunday night before you start your week. And that's a very practical way to convert these things we've talked about into better leadership tomorrow.
I think you have conducted a master class on leadership here, and I know for everyone in the audience, as well as yours truly, we appreciate the insight, and it's very direct, which is kind of what you look for when you're trying to gain insight or improvement from a speaker. You want them to just cut right to it, and you do a phenomenal job of that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Clay. Thanks for having me. It's a privilege and a pleasure to have this conversation.
Now, I also would like to thank all of you, our guests, for joining me this morning, and thank our sponsors for making this episode possible. You can be sure to rewatch this episode and view previous episodes at our website, businessforumusa.com. From all of us at the 21st Century Business Forum, happy holidays and happy New Year.